Welcome back for another episode of the Vitamin C's podcast, proud part of the CLNS Media Network. I am your host, Tim Sheils, and I am joined by my co-host and bro, Wayne Breezie Brown. Before we get into it, before we talk about everything that happened in Game 6, all of the excitement, all the action, and looking ahead towards the next series, first things first, Wayne, how are we doing today, man? I know I'm expecting a very good answer, but
I think my smile says it all. The Celtics close out that series. What a fight, right? It was like a boxing match,
hats off to
literally.
the Hawks, man.
They
Seriously.
played, Tim. Like they came, they brought it every night. The way they played the first two games, it just looked like it was going to be a sweep. But they must have had some type of conversation in the locker room or what, and they were like, you know what? Let's play these Celtics really hard. This is not a downgrade to them. They were a really good team. Trae Young just showed me why he's an NBA All-Star, All NBA team. Like he proved that why he is that. He's dangerous out there on the court. I know we talked about this earlier about him possibly not returning and they like building the team in a
I
different
don't I
direction.
don't I don't see it now because
Now,
he
no.
was huge to keep them in these games. I mean,
He,
DeJounte was pretty quiet in Game 6 in
yeah.
terms of just overall score and impact. Trey, however, was just he was getting to the line. There was a point in time where I was losing my mind because he was just getting to the free throw line with ease because
And
they
getting
just
foul calls, Tim. Like so
yeah,
he
that's
was
what I'm
drawing
saying.
the
He was
whistles.
great. He was grifting hardcore there for a while, and that's what he's able to do. You know, where he's that kind of shifty size, and he's so fast, and you know he's able to get past people, and you know sometimes the defense ends up overcompensating and reaching, and that's how you get those calls. I mean, he was really impressive, though. I will give him that much, and I also want to give a hats off to Quinn Snyder. Quinn Snyder coming into that situation and coaching the way he did, fantastic. Like that was not a team that you probably would have expected to be in there based on how they were performing. But, you know, he galvanized that team, got them to the play-in. Now you look at it and, you know, they've got some stuff to figure out, sure, but they still have a really strong base. They've still got some pieces they can move around. You know, do they keep John Collins? Do they get rid of John Collins? That seems to have been the question for the past few years. I thought John Collins had some solid performances in this series, hit some big shots, but you know, if they want to try and upgrade, I'm interested to see what's out there potentially. Maybe there's some other teams shaking things up, but overall, they put in a really good battle, and I think that was a lot. It was a lot more than I think most people expected, ourselves included. I think the one thing that we were watching out for was the shooting, and this had turned out to be a very high scoring series because both of these teams were just out running and gunning, and it made for some fun basketball. I'll tell you that much. This was a fun series, stressful but fun.
Yeah, very stressful because one team everything is going in, and the other team it's like, why do we take that shot? Like, why that shot at that moment? But what I liked about Game 6 was I think the Celtics figured out what the Atlanta Hawks were trying to do, and you just hit the nail on the head. The Hawks must have came out after Game 2 and said, you know what, guys, F it. Let's just shoot it. Let's just shoot it. Force them to shoot back. You know what I'm saying? If we hit, we hit. They had nothing. Like the Atlanta Hawks literally had nothing to lose. I mean, obviously they were playing for a championship, but they knew they were at the bottom. You know, the 7th seed. They really had nothing to really play for because the Celtics were supposed to be this such dominant team going into that matchup, going into that series. And so I think they just came out after getting beat really bad in the first two games, and they just said, let's come out and just shoot it. If we make our shots, cool. I mean, Hunter was just taking shots. DeAndre Hunter, I didn't even know could hit threes. I don't remember the Hawks even being a three-point shooting team all season long. If they were, they wouldn't have won 41 games. Like, they came out like they were the number one three-point shooting team. Like, and they would just take them, Tim. And I said to myself, Celtics, please don't get in the shootout. Please don't get in the shootout. Please don't get in the shootout. And we got into a shootout, right? But luckily we were able to hit those shots. And, you know, the Celtics game plan is to attack and they could get to the rim pretty much anytime they wanted. I just never understood why they had to result and settle for threes. And I feel like that's a lot of the reasons why they found themselves down in games and things like that. But fourth quarter, man, it's not about how you start. It's always about how you finish. I guess that old cliche will never go to bed.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that the Hawks were doing is they were trying to play to their strengths. They kind of changed things up. Like you said, game 3 and 4 felt very, very different from those first 2 games. And it came down to just the physicality and leaning into their bigs. And they started to do a lot of that in terms of just getting to the basket. You had Trey cutting a lot and then just finding people for these little little lobs, like right around the hoop. And those are like massive momentum swings. And there was a couple times where stuff like that happened too, where the Celtics would get like a great stop or something like that. And then, the Hawks would, somehow get the offensive board and then throw up like a quick lob. There were so many times that happened. And I think this series was really good in a lot of ways because it forces the Celtics to sort of take a look in the mirror. And I think they did that to a degree in game 6 to win this series. You saw Tatum fired up. You saw Tatum be a lot more aggressive getting to the basket. He took threes, right? So like at the end of the day, looking at his final stat line, he did take a lot of threes. This time he did take 10 threes, but he went 4 of 10, so 40% shooting.
That's way
very
better
solid
than 1
numbers.
of 10.
Much more respectable. 40% is nothing to scoff at. And you had another game where both Tatum and Brown scored over 30 points. Now they've got like the highest winning percentage in NBA history for duos that get 30 points or more in a game, higher than MJ and Pippen, I'm pretty sure. I think that's what they ended up passing. But like 23-1 all time when both of those guys get 30 points or more in a game, which is just it's a crazy stat line. It just reminds you how special that pairing is. But they overall were just a lot more aggressive in this game 6 to close things out. I think offensively, that's kind of like what you needed from them. I think Tatum still took a lot of a good amount of threes, but he was getting more to the hoop, right? Like you saw him be way more aggressive. I mean, I think one of the best plays that I saw was that freaking follow up on the miss.
Oh, the two-hand slam.
Oh my God!
After the miss, he just came out of nowhere. I
lost my mind.
But we needed it, right? Because that
momentum swings.
The momentum swing. It changed the energy of the game. Atlanta never seen it. They didn't see it coming. And once it happened, they were probably like, oh, shoot. Right? And so, that's kind of like what happened. I mean, we were hitting big shots at the end. Al Horford with the 3. It was good to see Grant Williams out there. He played for about 17 and a half minutes. He had a 3-point. He had 3 points, but just being out there on the floor, that's what we needed. It was something different. The only thing that was going crazy is that we were just going back and forth, back and forth. They take the lead, we take the lead. They take the lead, we take the lead. They take the lead. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It was rough.
Can the team go on a run? At least go on a run.
It was stressful. It was stressful. That was the hard part. You
tried watching, the game 6 and doing the draft show at the same time. You want to talk about stressful? Man. That junk was crazy.
No, but I get that though. So CLNS was doing a pre-draft thing, right? So that started at 7, and so I had to upload the L3s into our streaming software to make sure that they were there. And then at the same time, I'm cooking dinner. So I'm running between my office and the kitchen. So I got to go through my living room to my kitchen in my apartment. And so I'm going back and forth. I've got Celtics pregame on my TV, and I had a friend staying over. And so I'm doing all of the software and getting everything uploaded and then getting stuff ready for Celtics post game show. Cause it's just going to segue. So from 7 until I'm going to say 1:30 in the morning was just all of it was just crazy. This is what I wanted to avoid because I knew that the NFL draft was coming. And then as soon as it lined up, I was like, oh, Wayne's gonna have a nightmare night too.
Man, look,
this is your Niners coverage, man.
They did us zero favors, but we won, and that's the only thing that mattered. They're gonna be moving on to Philadelphia, and that's gonna be a great series. Different kind of series. Great series again. Probably we'll win in 6. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. I expect it to go
5.
You saying 5? I think it's gonna go 6. It's gonna be one of those games where, with what's their young quick guard, he just happens. Maxey just has one good game, And
Maxey should have at least one good game.
that'll be the difference right there. I mean, we're going to be playing Harden. We're going to be playing Embiid if he's coming back from his injury. And if, like you said, we talked about this also earlier, if he does come back from his injury, he shouldn't be at 100%. But, you know, these professional players are always at their 100% when they're playing, and that's kind of like what it comes down to. But I just like the matchups better. I think against Philadelphia, we just match up better. We have taller wings. We have wings that can match up with their wings. I mean, they have, like you said, they have Maxey, who's a quick guard, but James Harden is going to get off. I don't think James Harden will take half of the long ass 3-point shots that we watched Trae Young play against. So the Celtics should have some type of favor there. Right? I don't think he takes him that deep and that frequent. I mean, Trae would just come up and look at all 4 people on the court and just shoot the 3 from half court and it'll go in. I'd just be like, well, damn. I mean, how do you defend that? I don't think we'll get that from Harden, but I think it's going to be a good matchup. You got the experienced head coach with the the younger, inexperienced head coach. And shout out to our coach. This is his first semifinals, right? Like this is his first
as a head coach.
Head coach.
I mean, all of this is going to be first for him. But I mean, he was a big part of both Brad's tenure.
Tenure,
tenure,
tomato. Yeah,
tenure.
Just made it French.
So he was a big part of Brad's tenure when he was here towards the tail end of it, and then he was here for Ime. So he has some experience in it, but as a head coach, it's a totally different animal, right? The one thing I will watch out for is right now, this is from John Clark, NBC Sports, I'm guessing. I'm told Joel Embiid's status for Game 1 in Boston on Monday is still not known after a meeting with doctors, and it may not be known until Sunday or Monday. Okay. Depends how his sprained LCL responds and feels the next few days. There is hopes that he can play early on in the series in a brace. I don't know how confident I would be if I were 76ers fans in that, just because I know that this is a serious injury. Like LCLs, especially for a big guy, that's going to affect his movement. This is from 2 days ago. From Doc saying Joel Embiid did a little shooting off to the side today. No movement, still didn't practice. Rivers said he believes that Embiid has a bigger meeting set with doctors about his right knee sprain either tomorrow or the next day. So I think that was probably why his status is still up in the air. It's still not known after that meeting.
Wow.
So that kind of tells you how significant this injury is. And I do wonder how much of it is just general fatigue, or if this is something chronic at this point, or I don't even really know like when the knee started becoming an issue for him. Because I just know that like he's like a lot of these other guys, right? And in the same way that Jason Tatum does this, where it's like, and Marcus Smart too, but like they play through injuries and you don't know how bad it is until like it's really bad.
It's really bad.
Like the same thing with Jason Tatum's wrist. Like all of a sudden, like it's an issue. And it's like, well, he might get operated, might not. And it's like, I get you're trying to be coy about this, but like this was avoidable if you had it looked at and like decided on surgery in the off season. I would have much rather had you miss a few games at the beginning of the season while you're recovering from whatever wrist surgery might be needed. But if it's significant and you want to try and avoid it, like I get it. But unfortunately for Tatum's situation, that wrist injury got re-aggravated against, drumroll please, the 76ers.
Drumroll. That's the funny thing.
Oh, you got to get the sounds. We've got Landon.
There's the
against the
drum
76ers in the season. I think it was the season opener. He re-injured it like right off the bat in like game 1.
Yeah.
So
and I felt like it's been affecting him ever since, but he's been playing through it.
He's been playing better, I think, just because they've kept it wrapped so much. And this is actually from yesterday. This is from Keith Pompey, who does Pompey on Sixers is his Twitter handle. Shake Milton on Joel Embiid. I know whenever game 1 comes around and he's available, I know he's going to dominate like he always does with Joe. It's nothing you really have to worry about. He's getting his work in and he's going to be prepared. I don't think it's a matter of preparation, but if you want to talk about preparation, during this layover between series for the 76ers, James Harden decided to go to Las Vegas. The man is in Vegas. There was a video tweeted out by TMZ about like they were like he like slapped someone, like he was like kind of playfully slapping someone in the face, and I think it's one of his friends or something. But like TMZ was like, "Oh, James Harden slapped someone in the face," and it's like in Las Vegas, and it's like, so this is recent. Like this got posted within the past 12 hours, so that he's in Vegas. So
Well, let's hope he's
meanwhile,
tardy for the party on Monday.
I don't understand. This is a guy who just like
Basketball players do strange things, man. Like
James Harden does strange things.
Well, who was the basketball player that went to Magic City to get chicken wings?
Oh my God, was that Lou? Was that Lou Williams?
Where's Lou
Oh my
Williams,
God,
man?
was it Lou Williams who
It
broke
was Lou
protocol?
Williams. It was Lou Williams. Yes, it was. They do. You know, we're human beings, man. We do strange things. I mean, I don't mind going to Magic City for
Yeah,
the
it was
chicken
Lou
wings
Williams.
either. Yeah, you know. But why is Harden during the NBA playoffs in Vegas? Now, look, honestly, I don't really care. Like for me, the Celtics just need to do what they do, and they've played well against Philly all season long. And so, I mean, I don't even think any of that stuff matters anymore because they beat Atlanta. They swept Atlanta in the season series, and then they get to the playoffs, and then Atlanta comes out with a haymaker and just starts shooting and making their shots. But I just like the way we match up against the Philadelphia 76ers a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to say this, and I don't know how you might take it, but I'd rather see the Heat than the Knicks. Like, I'd rather see the Heat than the Knicks.
Yeah. I agree with that. Only because I don't. Obviously, we know that they're not healthy, right? And
Right.
Randall's dealing with stuff too, and Randall is a problem. But the Knicks don't have. It's not that they don't have drop off, but they're still able to play really, really well without him. I know they've got. I think it was Sims is now out for the season. He's like their second year center or something like that. I think it was a shoulder injury, some kind of surgery. So he's going to be out for the season. I'm not too familiar with all of the players on the Knicks roster, but they are a tough team. And my first game that I went to as a media member was against the Knicks. It was that overtime loss. I can tell you this much. That's a team that is tenacious. They're well coached. And that's not to say that the Heat aren't. We've spoken many praises about Eric Spoelstra, and that's still true. All of that is. But Coach Thibodeau is going to get everything that he can out of a team in terms of physicality, and he's a grinder, like
he's from
old
Connecticut
school
too, by the way. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me. But he was also part of the staff for Doc for a while. He was on Doc's staff for the title, and then he was the coach for the Bulls.
Yeah, he coached.
Yeah,
the D,
he was like the defensive-minded coach. Yeah, and that's exactly, if you look at the Knicks and how they play, that's his formula still. It's still very much like a grinded out kind of style of basketball, and for the Knicks, it works perfectly. You know, and so I worry about that for the Celtics because I think that's a team that they've had close encounters with in the regular season, games that they should have won and didn't. And maybe that gives you more ammunition going into it. But I like the idea of going against Miami because, yeah, you don't have Tyler Herro. They don't really have a lot of big men depth behind Bam Adebayo.
You just got to figure out Butler.
And Jimmy's going to be a problem. And so you got to decide like whether or not, like, do you just let Jimmy just do what he wants to do? Similar to like what people would do with LeBron or Giannis, where it's just like you let one guy just try and do everything and force that one guy to beat you. And that might be it. Maybe that is. I mean, Jimmy's a terrifying player to go against in the playoffs. It's a reason why I was like, please just don't draw the Heat, because that
Not
was going
first.
For sure was going to be like that was going to be a 7-game series.
Yeah.
And I'm still reeling from the fact that we didn't even talk about it really, but like the Bucks, you know,
the Bucks
getting bumped, man.
They got
bumped. And
hey, man,
they got a lot of stuff to figure out now too.
Yeah, they're a totally different team. I mean, Giannis is still a superstar, but, you know, the team is different. It's a little older. It's a little slower. And they're just not surrounded by the same young, scrappy energy that they used to have, like, right? And so that's kind of, you know, they went up against, I don't know why he's so underrated amongst stars in the NBA, but they went up against Jimmy Butler. Like, he put the team on his back and said, come on, guys, I got this. I mean, that's literally what he did. I mean, Bam was, he wasn't insignificant, but, I mean, he was just regular.
He wasn't taking over games. Like,
There's
just it's a different kind of thing, right? That Butler does when he takes over a game. And It's terrible. Like they were down 6 with like 2.5 minutes left, and and
I watched it.
he's pointing at Drew Holiday. He's like, "I own you," and then he just proceeded to back it all up, which is just incredible, and it's so on brand for Jimmy Butler.
Underrated, Tim. I'm sorry, he's
I think
underrated.
I don't think it's a matter of underrated. I think it's just I think he's a really good player. I think some people do overrate him. I think some people underrate him. I think he's one of those guys that like puts up really solid stats, but when the moment when the lights are brightest and the moment is the highest pressure, he performs. And I don't think that you can say that about every single player in the same way that Trae Young, like there are other point guards in the NBA that I would prefer on my team over Trae Young. That's not a shot at Trae. It's just acknowledging it. Trae has defensive limitations. I've talked about that.
Absolutely.
But when the lights are the brightest and he has to show up,
he puts on a show.
And that's what he did against the Celtics. And that's what Jimmy Butler does in the playoffs. When he has to put the team on his back, he's got no problem doing it. It's the reason why that the Miami Heat were in the finals in the bubble. I mean, if he weren't so gassed, they probably would have taken that series, in my opinion. So it's just kudos to him, and that's, I mean, you look at how Philly handled that situation. I think Philly should have obviously held on to Jimmy Butler. They chose Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, and that ultimately was a really stupid decision because I think if Philly still had Butler and they had Embiid and found a way to go add another guy, whether it be James Harden or someone else,
Harden wouldn't be there though, right?
I think they would have found a way to make it work. I think Harden and Butler and Embiid would have been disgusting. That would have probably won at least one championship by now. Philly's going to have to sit with that.
All three of those guys need the ball. They need the ball. That's that. And to me, that's why Miami is just doing their thing, right? Because nobody else needs the ball in their hand.
Who else can operate and create for themselves like Butler?
And so Butler is the creator. He's the the magician. He's making stuff happen. Like that's what he's doing. That's why they win. With the Knicks, though, it's going to be interesting because now they got to play keep up. The Knicks are fast and furious. Now the injury to and young. I forget how much youth plays a role, especially when the youth is good and your team is on a good roll. I don't know how much Randall's injury is going to affect him playing. It may be huge for the Knicks. It may not be because they seem to still stay pat against the Cavs even when he left the game. But it's good. That's going to be a good series. Boston is going to have to just do their thing. The good thing, we won't have to play down the competition. So, this is not a play down the competition type series, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think that was a concern going into the Atlanta Hawks series, and I think that was sort of why it was good that the Hawks came out swinging against the Celtics, because I think it kind of forced them to look at themselves and the way that they were performing and deciding what kind of team we want to be. We know what we're capable of. Are we going to play up to our expectations? So just an update, I was looking for it. Julius Randle was taking jumpers at the end of practice. He seemed to look okay. This is from Zach. I think it's Braziller.
That's good news
for the New York Post. And then Ian Begley also had this. He said Julius Randle went through limited practice today, just shooting, lifting, and cardio in the pool. Tom Thibodeau says. Tibbs also says they will take it day by day with Randle. And as you think, there is definitive timetable for his return at this point. So I think that they've got an idea. Maybe he'll be back for game 1. I don't know for sure. They're hopeful though. That's what they said he moved well today. And that is today. Like this is stuff from like 4 minutes ago. As that series, looks to kick off very, very soon. But you're at a point now where you're looking at the rest of the East. And this is sort of why I think once you saw the Bucks get knocked out by the Heat, you had to look at the rest of the East and say, we need to beat the Hawks right now. Yeah. Because you look around the rest and it's just, those are all teams that the Celtics should beat. But like, if you told someone at the beginning of the season that like, this is what those final 4 teams are going to be in the East, they probably wouldn't have believed you. 76ers believable. Okay. The Miami Heat being where they are at based on how they finished the season, you probably wouldn't have thought that.
The way they closed this game out, let me know that they're gonna be a problem going forward. So it was good. It was like we said, it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Celtics finally, last few minutes of this game, they just took the realms and they said, listen, we're going to go out and do it. And it took the vets, right? It took Marcus Smart. It took Al Horford. It took the veterans of this team to sit there and make big plays, hustle plays, grab a rebound for a change, like just the little intricate things to keep your team, in that win column. And so I thought the way that they closed out the game was fantabulous. I know that's a new word for some of you guys out there watching, but we needed that. Like we seriously needed it. It was definitely needed. Brogdon had a good game off the bench too. Like he was just in the zone, right? He would just come, pop, pull up, hit the midi, pop, pull up, hit the midi, take a three, hit the midi. Like that's what we need, yo. Just go out there and play your game. Stop. They did it. They did it. They got the win. That's the only thing that mattered. That's the only thing that mattered.
Yeah, I think the mid-range, especially for Brogdon, there was a couple really tough buckets that he got. The three-point shot was not really there for him. He went 1 of 5, but I remember the 1-3 that he did hit was really big. It was off a Tatum screen. Yes. And so that was a really solid night for him. Like you said, 17 points off the bench, 6 of 13 from the field, 4 of 4 from the line, which was big. And while we're mentioning it too, I also want to give shout-outs to Marcus Smart.
Yes, sir.
Fourth quarter, he had a couple turnovers that were ugly, but besides that, like he was massive, instrumental in that comeback, especially when you look at just the overall energy that they needed. Really, really brought it. I was really, really impressed with the team and the way that they responded after the collapse last time. It felt scarily trending in that same direction for this one, but they managed to go ahead and pull it out by fighting tooth and nail. And I think you really have to look at Jaylen Brown for this series specifically. He's been one of the brightest stars so far in the playoffs, looking around at the rest of the league. I mean, just crazy stats and just a monster performance when you really needed it. 13 of 25 from the field, 32 points in the night, 6 of 8 from 3, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. Only 2 turnovers too, which is big. Was just monstrous night. And when you look ahead too, like that's going to be a matchup that you're going to look at with James Harden. I don't know how this team is going to attack with Philly specifically, because if Joel Embiid's not there, like, are you focusing on the 3-point shot or are you trying to attack the paint? Like,
right.
How are you going about that? And I do wonder too, like Grant Williams got 17 minutes, right? Damn near 17, almost 17:30. He didn't dazzle, but he looked like he was engaged, invested, out there hustling, getting some rebounds, getting an assist, getting a steal. Like he looked like a dude who was hungry for minutes. And I think in a series where you're going to go against PJ Tucker, I think you're going to really, really, really want to have Grant out there. So I'm interested to see if he gets in the mix. I don't know what your thoughts are on that before we try and wrap up.
I feel like Grant is earning his time. I don't know what he did to not earn the time, but that's going to be but see, he's going to be needed in that series. You're going to have to deal with the PJ. You're going to have to deal with those type of guys. And to me, I feel like that's Grant Williams' ceiling, right? That's who he can become. The PJ Tucker, if he tightens up on defense. The only thing about Grant Williams, and I like his tenacity, right? I like the fact that he'll make up in his mind and say, F everybody, I'm going to go get this layup. But then he never makes the layup.
He just needs to polish it.
He just has to polish it, Tim. He just has to polish it. But the only way you can polish it, Tim, is by playing basketball. So he has to be out there on the court. And I think he'll get minutes. Like I said, almost 17 and a half minutes for Grant. That was huge for the Celtics. And they played overall well and finished out that game against the Philadelphia 76ers. They're going to have to bring their A game night in and night out. Like they're going to have to bring it in with or without Embiid. See, without Embiid is more scary with Embiid. Why? Because then the Celtics have the opportunity to play down to the competition. Embiid is their guy. That doesn't mean James Harden can't get buckets. Doesn't mean that other players on their team can't get buckets. It could be one of those nights. The last time we played Philadelphia, like PJ Tucker ain't hit a shot the whole game until the fourth quarter. Next thing you know, he's the man. They won because of that. It was because of him. We left him wide open, and that's what I wanted to end my stint on. I'm not sure why the Celtics are always either out of position on defending the 3-point or like what is going on defending the 3-point shot. Like I get the reports, the scouting reports, be like, hey man, let this guy shoot. But this is the NBA. Everybody can hit threes at all the positions. You leaving a guy wide open, it's more of a chance of it going in, right?
Yeah, I think part of it is like they want to be selective with the shots that they contest. I think they're really, really trying to let some of these 3-point shooter shoot. Like you said, like I think they're looking at the scouting report and saying, we can live with this guy taking a three. If he hits it, okay, great. But we're not going to go ahead and overextend our defense or overreact to try and go and defend a three. So I think that's part of it. Like I wouldn't say that if it weren't for the fact that like you look at some of the guys who they were letting take threes, like John Collins got a lot of open threes. DeAndre Hunter got a lot of open threes. And there were some points in time in game 6 where I got frustrated. Yeah, like wide open. Like not even close to a contest.
Tim, because when I got frustrated, you told me to chillax. I'm like, okay.
Well, so you got ahead of me though. That was the thing. You were ahead of me, so you were reacting. I was like, I'm like a 30-second delay behind.
You did say it like that, but
I was like, please don't. I don't want to spoil anything. I was already like crazy enough trying to like run between the rooms and trying to see what's going down. So, oh, you're fine.
And the funny thing is, I was behind because I'm watching it on the stream and it's usually delayed. So that's the funny part.
But yeah, so I think I think just overall looking at the series and seeing how they're going to defend, I think the big thing I would look out for is you don't want to leave guys open. I think it's the big thing.
Thank you.
You know,
thank you.
I do want to see like how the attack. I want to see how they attack offensively. Like the 76ers with no Joel Embiid in there, like how is James Harden going to play? Like how's that going to roll out? But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited for the series. Again, I think it's going to be 5 games, especially depending on health. But I guess we'll see what happens there. Besides that, do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up today, man? I know you got plenty of other stuff to do for NFL coverage.
Oh, man, it's crazy. I know with that. Hey, look, I think the Celtics are ready. I think they got whipped into shape. How about that?
I'll take it. Yeah, I agree. So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of Vitamin C's podcast. Again, proud part of the CLNS Media Network. And we'll catch you next time. I think we'll probably go after game 1. Game 1 is going to be on Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tip-off, and that's going to be at TD Garden. Besides that, we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet.